This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Welcome back, everyone. In this video, I want to go through some work that was sent in by viewers like you. We've got some awesome stuff today, but really quick before we get going on that, I do want to say a couple things about the Japan trip coming up. So I'm going to be doing a workshop in Japan this December with my friend David Brookover. David is an awesome photographer. You guys might remember him from the Artist Series a while back. Anyway, we're going to be taking a group of people to Japan. We've got a couple more slots open. If you need more information on this, I've got a whole video on that. I will link that in the show description below. We've got a couple more slots left, so if you want to come, now's the time to sign up and get your deposit in. But without further ado, let's get to some of our awesome work that's been submitted today. So first up is a bunch of magazines that were sent in by a gentleman named Tomasz Trzebiatowski, who is a Swiss photographer who is also in the publishing business. And he's got two photography magazines that he produces. You guys may be familiar with Fuji Love, which is dedicated to the Fujifilm camera system. And then there's this one, which is Frames. And he sent me a bunch of copies of this. This is awesome. Frames is a quarterly publication that comes out as a printed magazine. It's also a podcast and it's also a community forum, and I'll put information on all this below. But the magazine features major names in photography. There's everybody in here from Michael Kenna to Steve McCurry, Elliot Erwitt. Was pleasantly surprised to see two friends of mine, Philip Penman, who I know through Leica. We met this last year. He's a brilliant photographer, does a lot of really cool street stuff, lives in New York, really good stuff. And then also my friend Becky Semp, who is not a professional photographer, but she is a professional curator at the CCP, University of Arizona. The layout on here is really cool. You've got photographs, and then you've also got commentary by each artist, which is really neat. And also what's interesting is a lot of these images, especially with the Michael Kennas, are not ones that I'm familiar with, and I've got a ton of Kenna books. So Tomasz, awesome job on this. I can only imagine the labor of love that goes into doing something like this once a quarter, no less. And so really awesome work. So man, I really appreciate you sending this, and you guys check it out. I will link up Frames in the show description below. Do not miss this. All right, so next up is this lovely little book. This comes to us from Bruno Candeias. This is called Âmbar. So Bruno enclosed a nice note here on his process. This is his first photo book, but I want to read you just a little bit of the intro here because I think this will give you a little bit of context around these images. It reads, "During winter storms, Âmbar frequently washes up onto the shores of the Baltic Sea. The waters that once witnessed the first bombings of the Second World War reply with their pure form of beauty. When I moved to Poland in 2017, I discovered a nation of contrasts. Through my journeys, I encountered breathtaking natural landscapes, dynamic cities within one of Europe's fastest growing economies, and the genuine warmth and hospitality of the Polish individuals who welcomed me like family. However, I also experienced the melancholy of the cold winter months, and in every location I discovered remnants of the country's turbulent past. In the last century, Poland witnessed invasions, wars, and revolutions, yet in spite of these challenges, Poland's resilience and its affection for its homeland propelled it towards reclaiming its former glory. This book is my attempt to encapsulate the dichotomies that I witnessed while exploring the contemporary Poland, from the Baltic beaches on the northern coast to the frozen forests of Zakopane near the border of the Czech Republic." So Bruno, this is outstanding, and I think in a visual sense, you have achieved exactly what you set out to do. I think there's some wonderful stuff. I get the sense of dichotomy through a lot of these. Some really wonderful images in here and things that you don't expect. I love the benches in the snow, for instance. I think my favorite images in here, right here, this one with the underpass that's coming apart. I want to share one other thing, and this is in Bruno's note, and he writes in here, "Publishing this book was an intense process full of creative challenges, unknowns, and self-doubt. The support from my close friends, fellow photographers, and inspiration through your videos and newsletter are essential to the project's success." And I want to talk about that for a minute. Bruno, thank you for being vulnerable in your note on that, because I think this is something that is really important for a lot of photographers to hear. The idea of self-doubt is something that I've heard from a lot of different photographers, and this is something that you've got to get beyond. And I know that that's just easier to say than it is to do, because what we do as creatives is all of a sudden we've been working on something, or we have an idea or a concept that we're going forward, and then you get worried about maybe how other people might perceive that. You know, maybe they'll like it, but worst case scenario, what if they don't? And it's really scary and it's a lot of work, and this is just too much to handle sometimes. And I think that you have to remember that as a photographer, if you don't have anything to build on, you're definitely not going to get better and improve. You have to give yourself permission to fail sometimes. And every project that's come in, somebody has said finally at some point along the line, screw it, I'm going to put this out. And I think that's so important. I've also seen people, and you guys have too, that have sent stuff in over the years on this channel, and you've seen how they've improved as they've gone along. And that's a really cool thing to see, because a lot of times with the big name photographers, we only see the final product that's very polished and very finished, and usually somebody with a high level of talent around it, which is great, but you never see the process that went into that. So therefore, I think it's easy for all of us to think that maybe that doesn't exist, or maybe we're different because we're having to struggle with something. So anyway, thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to share that with everybody because I think it's something that we can learn from. And when you come up with a project that has this level of photography in it and this level of concept, it's cleanly designed. You did an excellent job, my man. So Bruno, thank you for sharing. And of course, I will link up to Bruno as well as everybody else in the show description below, so make sure you support your colleagues and check them out. And I've got a couple other zines that I want to share with you, but really quickly, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor this week, who are the always awesome folks over at Squarespace. How easy is it to build an amazing website in a matter of minutes? Squarespace has you covered. It's dead simple. Head over to Squarespace, hit get started. You can start by selecting from an impressive collection of customizable templates, or you can do what I do, build your own. Something unique because, you're not like other websites. Give your site a name. Next, you can build your homepage. We'll start with a few preset layouts just to get us going. Want to sell products like books or prints? Well, you can feature those on your homepage. Create a few more sections if you want. Let's also give it a color palette. There's a whole bunch to choose from, and just get us started. We can change this all later. Next, let's select the typography choices. Welcome to your website. Everything is set up and it's all ready for you to customize. Squarespace is built on Fluid Engine, the next generation of website design. Select Edit, and Fluid Engine allows you to drag, place, and resize any element on the page. You can snap these to a grid, you can make them float on top of one another, you can freeform however you like. You can even preview and adjust how the site looks on either desktop or mobile. The layouts are independent. Of course, you'll want a portfolio for your work. Creating an image gallery is as easy as dropping a folder of images on your web browser. Once uploaded, you can drag to resort, customize the look, and Squarespace writes all of the code for you. Everything just works and it looks fabulous. Want to sell your own prints, books, or zines? Squarespace has the capabilities to not only set up your online store and collect payments, but they also give you all the tools that you're going to need to be successful. Managing shipping and payment options, manage your orders, and engage with your customers. They even give you the tax tools that you need to keep things organized and stay compliant. You should try Squarespace for yourself. It's absolutely free, no credit card required. Just go to squarespace.com/AOP, sign up for that free trial. If you decide Squarespace is right for you, I can save you an additional 10% on your order by using offer code AOP on checkout. That's right, the code is AOP. So stop procrastinating, go build your website today. And I want to give a special shout out and thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. So next up are two zines that were sent in by Daniel Newcomb. And so we have Hotel Chelsea, which is this first one, which is a study of the Chelsea Hotel in New York City. And then we have Lines and Light, which is a very interesting study in line and shape with a bunch of black and white architectural work. That also, if you click on this QR code, you can get music that goes along with this. So very interesting idea. Daniel includes a note which reads, "Dear Ted, I figured I would share my first attempt at two zines I put together. The first is my latest project I have been working on for the past year and a half. It is a small selection of the images that I've been working on with the artist and composer Aaron Lepley called Lines and Light. The first page of the zine explains the work concept. The other is images of one of my muses, the Chelsea Hotel. I have been staying and photographing the Chelsea since the early 1990s, and this is a small selection of that work. I appreciate your feedback, especially the work and direction on the images in my Line and Light project. As always, thank you for what you do, Daniel." So Daniel, I love the concept of the Chelsea Hotel book. You've sent me stuff on this before. I remember you sent me a book called Downtown Dreams a while back. I think it's an awesome subject, definitely worth exploring. If you guys don't know about the Chelsea Hotel, famous hotel in New York City. I'm not going to go into that as much because I've covered that in your other book, but I will cover Lines and Light a little bit. So first off, I think it's an awesome concept. I like the idea of bringing music and photography together. And this is a subject I've been very interested in for a long time because I have a music background, and so the visual thing and how does that relate to the music thing that I used to do, and there are a lot of similarities, and they mainly come down to form. They come down to things like repetition. I love the book. I love the idea of combining music with this. The only thing that I would suggest to you is, like the architectural images, I would like to be surprised a little more, and I think because all of these are basically a view looking up, that we kind of have the same view that it goes across from page to page. And I think that if you were able to vary that up and then also look for things where you can have some repetition, so you have motifs to grab onto, if you will. So whether that's something like, I think on the cover, for instance, the light is a great motif. So how can you bring that back? And how can you create a form around that where you do have some repetition and all of a sudden you do have a composition where people start to grab onto? I think this is a great start. I'd love to see you do more with this. I love the fact that you're working with a composer and actually doing some music with this too. I think it's a really cool concept. That'd be my only recommendation on here, is I would like to see this start to echo more of a musical composition in a way, rather than a collection of images where you just kind of go spread to spread, mostly full bleed in here, but, well, not full bleed, but they take up the entire spread. But how do these images relate to each other, and how do they start speaking with one another? And I think that's where you're going to make a really interesting musical connection with that. So anyway, nice start on that, and thanks for sharing. All right, so next up is a very interesting conceptual little book. This is called Bloodwork. This comes to us from Joe Madsen. Joe enclosed a note which reads, "Dear Ted, my name is Joe Madsen. I'm a creative director in the ad industry and photographer from New York City by way of Bayonne, New Jersey. I love your segment on photo books and scenes and wanted to share my latest work with you. My new book, titled Bloodwork, is a street photography book that was inspired by my struggle with high cholesterol. When I was told I needed to lower my cholesterol, I decided to get more steps in. I brought my camera with me to keep myself motivated and discovered the incredible genre of street photography along the way. Thank you for your time. Regards, Joe." So, Joe, this is a really interesting little book. I love the concept behind the title and the fact that you were trying to lower your cholesterol. I'm kind of in the same boat these days. Hope you succeeded on that, and I'm glad that you were able to stumble into something that also involved your passion for photography. I think this is a really cool start, and again, like I've said with a lot of these, I want to see some more of this. Right now, Bloodwork is really cool, and you've got this as a collection of street photography, but as an art director in the ad business, you would certainly understand this. What I want to see is something that you have themes and motifs that kind of start to tell a story. And rather than just being a collection of images that happen to be in a book together, they start to go somewhere and they start to tell you something visually, whether it's a story, whether it's something literal. It could be, but it could also be something that's just not as literal, but like it's just more geometrical or visual in nature. But I think you're off to a wonderful start, and man, you got some really good eye for street stuff, and I want to see more. I think some of your best images in here, I'm going to point a couple out here. So there's two. I love this spread of the rooftop with all the graffiti where you get this kind of complexity to it, and it ends up being somewhat of an atmospheric image, which you also have in this, which I love, the people coming out of the fog here. Can you guys see this? Something very cool, and it would be really neat to see you start pushing your work into some new directions that are a little bit less conventional for street photography. But man, awesome start. Thank you for sharing. If you guys want to see any of these books or support your fellow colleagues, I will link everybody in the show description. Until the next video, I'll catch you guys then. Later.